All right, rock and roll. Welcome to the second, I believe, of the Pawesome podcast. Is that what we're still calling it? Pawesome podcast. So welcome to the second installation. We are going to kick it off with Taimi, who's going to let us know a little bit about the market.
Yeah, wow. Market. What is market?
Well, we were.
So year to date, we kind of look at what's been happening, and the last 2 weeks were very interesting with what happened with the interest rate, where the Fed finally deciding to put a pause on it. The S&P, as well as most of the other indices, retreated. And now for the 1 month, we have the S&P at 1.7. We have the Dow Jones at 1, the Russell at 3.8, and the NASDAQ's at 2.6 so far. For the month, of course. On the year, etc., they retreated from their tops because at one point we saw the S&P at almost 20%.
It was an exciting time, and I think the common sentiment at that time was that we were going to see Fed cut rates sooner than we are now led to believe will be the case. So can you speak to why that has an impact seemingly on tech, maybe more than any other sector or industry right now?
Of course, yeah, tech usually is very volatile for a variety of reasons. One of them is the value driven by the stock is mostly because of investors believing that there's more production going to happen from these companies. So you're investing in an idea, and I think we touched base on this last time. That's why it's more volatile, less so to the smaller, less so volatility to the smaller name, to the bigger names, because they're already established. But the smaller names, when they bring up these exciting ideas, these exciting products they want to put into the market, whether it's a software or it's a hardware, they need cash. And like anything else, as probably heard that before from many wise men out there, they say companies don't run out of business or get out of business because they don't have innovations, but they run out of cash.
Right. So these growth-oriented companies obviously need cash to continue to grow,
consistently.
Which makes sense. So that's kind of the Fed pausing rates impact on the equities and specifically tech. Can you speak to what that pause then does to any existing fixed income vehicles, products, et cetera?
Now, if you put it in a vacuum, say there are no other factors involved, just treasury rate increase or decrease, usually it does two things. Number one, it gives a hint to investors that rates are not going to go higher, which makes existing treasuries and existing vehicles very attractive for those seeking fixed income for the next whatever the amount they're planning on.
And to clarify, because we've had to do this a number of times, to clarify, the reason for that is because, let's say whatever, you have something worth 5% and the Fed says we're done raising rates, and now 5% is the highest coupon you can get from something. So obviously, yes, that becomes more attractive, and investors willing to pay more money to get 5% because they know we are limited in terms of our availability of 5% investments.
Yeah, and usually the longer end, meaning the 30 and 20 years, those are acquired exceptionally quick by massive, mostly insurance companies, because that's how they base their rate, the income cash flow into it. So yes, it does affect it that way. And when yield is down, as you know, price goes up.
Right.
Which opens a lot of strategies into the bond play here, which we can discuss at a later time.
Okay. So that's sort of in a vacuum, like we talked about. But now there is something looming, the likes of which we've never heard before. The government is threatening to shut down.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So,
not last year, not the year before it, never.
Hypothetically, if this unheard of thing were to occur, how does that impact the idea of treasuries or fixed income?
So the ratings are based on big agencies, whether we agree or disagree with them, but they base those ratings on several factors. One of these factors is the availability of cash or the predictability of cash flow. And ironically, some big corporations now, we don't want to mention names, but they have higher rating than the treasuries, which is kind of ridiculous. because, well, how can you be? However, when you want to be that technical, it does look like it. When you can predict the cash flow for this company, but not predict the cash flow for the treasuries, that issues the money in the first place.
Yeah.
Because of political risks, they call it.
Sure.
So that's why when you have that, and there is a possibility of another downgrade, technically, which will put the yield even higher than what is currently in the market.
Okay. And I think the last thing we wanted to touch on was housing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we just want to say, like we all own houses at this point, hopefully. It's the
For now.
Yeah, right. For now, the one major asset most American families have is their house. That's the biggest investment. So for those who are now, rightfully so, many complain that it is becoming unaffordable. When a price drop is looming, it could make a possibility to get into the market, assuming that house prices don't jump, which usually that's the reaction to it. It just will open that door for discussion for the coming months and years to see how that will play out.
Yeah, certainly an interesting environment, and the talks of bubbles,
availability of inventory, etc. So we'll see how that plays out. It's just we talk about this a lot. Our clients also mention that a lot to us.
All right, so this is the now after hours version of the Pawesome podcast, where I'm, at least the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to start talking, and I'm going to try my best to relate it to relevant information, and you feel free to steer me in any direction if it feels appropriate. So I recently went over the big water. And went to there's a big body of water for those of you who haven't seen it. Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And so I took an airplane and we went over that and landed in Italy, where everybody is learning Italian over there apparently.
Yeah. Did you know that children in Italy speak Italian?
Yes, they are teaching the children as well, which is crazy.
It's crazy, really.
But anyway, so the most, obviously it's incredible. For anybody who's been or wants to go, you should go. But there was a night we go to this dinner, and they eat very late in Italy. So the reservation was for 8:30. At 7:30, we show up at the restaurant because we're stupid, apparently.
You need to eat, man.
I was very, very hungry. We were very, very tired. And so we show up to this place, and the woman is there. And we say, hey, is it okay if we sit down? And she looks like, no, it's absolutely not okay if you sit down. She said, what time is your reservation? We said 8:30. She goes, you come back at 8:30. Oh, okay. Which is fair. So we go grab a drink and kind of walk around, and then we show up at 8:30, and this old Italian man sort of shuffles out in his apron, and he points at the table, which I meant sit. So we sit down, and he puts these menus down, and he says, this is not a democratic menu. This is just for looks. And I thought, oh, yeah, this is exactly where I want it to be. And so he goes, pretty much what you tell me is when to stop. I make what I make using the ingredients I have, and you eat it. And when you want me to stop or you need to split a dish because you're full, okay. So we then proceed to have the best dinner I've ever had in my life.
But did it look like a restaurant, or did it look like his house?
It looked like his house.
Okay.
Now, granted, it's if you lived there, you'd have a very beautiful house, but it still looked like a house.
Oh, sorry.
And it was very, very cool. I mean, he probably sat 18 to 20 people all night at 8:30, and those were the only people that got to eat there that night. So super, super cool, fantastic food. Had me rethinking everything I thought I knew about cuisine. And then after a bottle of wine, the conversation gets broader. And sort of transcends cuisine. And so I start thinking about what we do here and what investors do anywhere. So again, this man said, here's what I know. I know these ingredients, right? I make these dishes, and that's it. I don't, somebody comes and says, hey, did you hear what they're doing next door? Did you hear it? He doesn't go, oh, let me incorporate that into the meal that I've been making for probably 30 years. No. This is what I do. If you like this, you should eat here because I do it very well. If it's not your thing, you should not eat here because I don't do that thing. And so it just, it made me think about when it comes to portfolios, when it comes to investing, and I don't even necessarily mean how we service a client, because if a client comes in here and you have a nut allergy, I'm not going to say, no, I cook everything with peanuts. I don't care. We have a little more flexibility than that, but it's more about the mindset of not chasing. I'm not chasing the trend, right? I'm not going, oh, well, my neighbor's over on this thing and he says it's doing really, really well. It's like, well, you were doing fine. He goes, yeah, but I heard about this. Stay on your path. Stick to what you know. I mean, going back to the conversation we had earlier about the young man who was in our office, rightfully so, I didn't think it made sense, and neither did he, for him to become a client, because this is not something that he felt he understood. So for him to get into something he doesn't understand, if it does not go great, he's rightfully going to be concerned, and it's going to make for an outcome that is less than ideal. So again, this old Italian man who maybe has never invested $1 in his life in anything other than his restaurant, because that's what he knows, gave me a lot of thought, in a more broad sense about like what does it mean to be true to the things that you know. And what best, and what kind of experience does that create? Not, obviously in this case it's not food, but for the investor, what kind of experience is that creating? And hopefully it's one of comfortability, it's one of confidence, knowing what the ingredients are and knowing that I'm not allergic to any of these things, and that one doesn't make me feel bad afterwards, or that one doesn't make me feel terrible in the morning. It's just simple meals. And I think that's the idea, is we're serving some simple meals here.
Yeah, you're going to show up to our office, you're going to talk to me, you're going to talk to Taimi, Bracher, Scott, you name it. And that's it. You know exactly what you get when you walk through the door. We're not going to sell you product. We're not going to do any of that craziness. You're here for that steak dinner, and we do that steak dinner really, really well. And if you're looking for sushi, well, that's okay. We'll point you to the sushi place down the street.
First thing I think of is why didn't he invest in the stock market? And I remember it's Italy, so
right.
I wonder how much the Italian stock market did. I don't know, but I'm gonna find that out.
Yeah,
just got my interest there. Number one. Number two is he makes that. I hope he doesn't make the same dish every day.
He does.
He does.
He makes the same dishes every day for a month.
Oh, then he switches.
And then he switches it. But quite frankly, I would have eaten there 5 days in a row, the same exact meal. I would have had zero issues with it.
And yeah, that's the quality.
Oh boy.
Well,
now this is gonna make it sound more complicated, but I promise that it was actually very, very simple. The first dish, I believe, was some type of just arugula salad. I don't think there was anything on it other than olive oil, which is all of the places you look at. Oh, we'll get there. Next thing he called a deconstructed ratatouille and a French pastry, which was I ate it and I went, okay, well, we're done here. I've had the best thing he has. And then he brings out like a tagliatelle with the ragu that has, I think, rabbit and like turkey and chicken. And then I thought, okay, well, we've seen the best here, but I'm not going to stop now because right now he's 2 for 2. And so then he brings out what I thought was just roast beef. But it was like a carpaccio sort of thing, and there was a sauce. So it didn't stop. It was just banger after banger for this guy. But the whole time, and maybe it's, quite frankly, after eating Italian food in Italy, I've decided every Italian restaurant I've ever been to in America should be deeply ashamed of what they're doing to that food.
Don't tell him. He'll be very disappointed.
No, but I mean, he's the guy. Like, I think he knows it.
Yeah,
he was talking about the other places, and he kind of said, he's like, look, I serve whatever it was, 18, 20 people a night. That's it. I cook all day to serve 18 to 20 people. That is all I do. And you're going to sit here for a while. You're going to sit here for 3.5 hours because I'm cooking. You go somewhere else, you sit down, you order something, their food's out in 20 minutes. You know why? Because they cooked it at 9 o'clock. It's been sitting there all day.
Yeah.
He's like, I am making this every single night. There's no magic. There's no team. It was him and his daughter. That was it.
See, but that's his gig. That's what he likes to do. You can tell he's enjoying it.
He was passionate about it, for sure. But you eat it, and then you're like looking, like almost every meal I had, I was like looking for it. I was like, where's the thing? Like, what is doing this? And then you realize it's the lack of things. It's like
also less
the notes
is
you
more.
don't play. Yeah.
Less is more.
Yeah. So you're
We'll have
sitting
to have
there.
a hashtag on that. You know?
It was crazy though, because I'm looking. I'm like, I guess there's some salt and pepper here, but otherwise, like usually the main flavor you would get was like whatever olive oil they were using, which was also incredible and different at every restaurant. But yeah, I'd be like, damn, like it's light, but I'm not hungry anymore. You don't get that. Like I was like, in America, if I had ordered like, okay, you order this thing with cream, the main flavor would have been cheese. Like no matter, like most Italian food, like it's like here's some things and cheese, and like here's some things and liquid cheese, and then you leave and you feel disgusting. And yeah, they have done it right. But yeah, it was all about using. And what's crazy is I think we were sitting next to the ingredients. With the except there was no ducks there. Actually, there was a swan, but I doubt that's what was in there.
Just make sure you don't name them.
Yeah.
Don't name it.
But no, the railing of the restaurant, because it was all outside. The railing, it's like, okay, there's some, I think like some basil was growing, some parsley's growing in these pots right there. I'm like, oh, that's probably where he's getting it from each day. We went to one place that was in legitimately somebody's backyard. She's like, yeah, our garden is right, it's 15 feet away from where you're sitting. But yeah, it's the only meal I've ever had where I was like, oh, this makes you think. Because most meals just make you eat.
Food for thought.
Yeah, it was food for thought.
Food for thought. No, I have to do two things now. Go to Italy and learn Italian. And Italian stock market.
You should do those in the opposite order.
Italian.
Learn Italian, then go to Italy.
But learn by practice,
I learned that I need
Say a bunch of bad words.
French, olive oil, and Italian.
They'll argue that they.
No, I thought French do olive oil. I thought it's Spanish and Italian and Greek.
I think they all argue with each other. I mean, even like it was pretty unprompted. We went to a winery, and out of nowhere, the guy was like, "Yeah, and we don't put this stuff in ours like the French do." And I was like, "What?" It's like nobody asked that.
He's got it ready there. He's waiting for it.
It was very strange.
Same idea. They have 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah. You want to tell us about your AI Bill of Rights? Your recent journeys?
So I just went to Baltimore. I was there on the weekend. There was a campus convention for the Whitening School of Engineering at Johns Hopkins. That's where I did my graduate program. And there was a lot of bright minds there. Me excluded because I'm...
I wasn't going to make the joke.
If you do that quantile thing in the quartile, you'll see all of them, and then you see the very bottom.
The Taimi
I'll be
quartile.
like there, just by myself. And it all has to do because of in there. Anyway, so we have to go through a lot of presentations by these guys. Some of them are alumni. Some of them are current students. Some of them working. Most of them are actually working. It's for professionals there. Some of them work for NASA, some hedge funds, you name it, different kinds of things. And among the discussions that we had, one of them was an open panel with everybody on board, and they were asking questions about what do you think. One of the guys works in AI, in robotics, in one of the big corporations in there. And the question that was roaming about was, if we install this program on this machine, that is a car, and that car runs over a human being, right? God forbid, we don't want that to happen. Well, who is to be blamed?
Right. Was it the driver, the car, the manufacturer, the
engineer, the designer, where does the blame go? Now, mind you, there is an ethical thing, as in, yes, actually, you have to make sure that these things don't happen, but also in terms of liability, in terms of corporate, who's going to shift the blame on what? And then that shifted into another thing of, well, we can't jail a car, of course. We can't put it behind bars because time there doesn't mean much, as in time means to us. Well, why time means to us that way? What is the difference between a robot and a human?
Does
and
AI
it went down.
have any concept of mortality?
It depends again on the developer, I think.
Like if I went to unplug AI or rip the battery out, would they ask me not to?
That's a great point, because
It's really dark if they do. I'm
because
pretty much
guess
saying,
what?
like, let me, yeah.
I don't know if anybody used to watch Star Trek, but they brought that up. We're the Borg. There was an episode in the 70s, I think, that they brought up. They brought in the presentation. They were talking about when they introduced the machine, and they introduced this machine on set in that episode. I think season 2, episode 4 or 5. And they said this computer is the best computer they ever created, and it can do everything. So they are happy about it. Some of them trust it, some of them don't. Long story short, they start thinking that this machine is beginning to start reflect on it, itself. So
Becoming sentient.
yes. So one of the crew members decides to unplug it, and it creates a mechanism to prevent that crew member from doing it. By doing so, of course, that crew member is gone. But of course, he's not one of the main characters because they want that to continue as the show. So he's just a roadiest guy who just walked in and is like, oh. So it goes to that point, as in, if you're going to do that, then what are the restrictions?
Yeah.
What are the rules that you need to put into AI? Which led to somebody mentioning that there are discussions right now on very high levels legally of something called the AI Bills of Rights.
We talk about AI here to stay. Bill of Rights, as most of you are familiar with.
Yeah.
It's a pretty permanent thing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, for some, it will be something they are afraid of, because Bill of Rights, what do you mean? They are not humans. They're not equal. What are you talking about?
So what if, all right, not that, I mean, all this is tied, yeah. But what if at some point I have, I don't know, some machine, like I have an AI dog, and I love my AI dog. And then one day my AI car, or somebody else's AI car, hits my AI dog, and I don't know if you say kills or breaks it.
I don't know. Without having rules, without having clear guidance on what is it and what is it not, are there going to be accountability? Are we going to say, oh, because the victim is a non-living creature, therefore the consequences are not the same?
Right. You could even argue the dog is also AI. Why didn't it?
How did Terminator start?
Exactly. So it is very philosophical discussion, but it also has its merits in the way we perceive things around. Really. But business-wise, that is good, because that will set up guidelines to how to develop this technology that we have. In what direction we couldn't be doing this. Similar to when cloning first became a thing. Actual cell cloning technologies, and there was clear restrictions that, although we can use it for this, but we can't use it.
Didn't they clone a sheep?
Yes,
Yeah.
they did, and other creatures as well. But when it comes to humans,
Where do we stand on wolf futures?
well, it depends
Don't
on
answer
the type in there. I don't know. But yes, so that was an interesting, prolonged conversation that went on with very bright minds there, just to see what they think about it. Because you had people who had certain ideas on both sides of the spectrum and everywhere in between, politically. Some of them were discussing, where does religion play into that? Others, what about constitutional rights? And it goes on. So yeah, this is deep, and it's here to stay.
It's making my head hurt.
Yeah, I kind of view this almost like the technology of it's not AI, but the self-checkout at the grocery store.
Well.
Everybody loves it. Everybody hates it.
Well,
Like, I would much rather pay a little bit extra for my milk so that someone can put it in the bag properly, because I'm certainly not qualified to do that correctly. But similar to AI, if you use it as a tool, just like the technology, it's pretty good. But if it takes over and kind of gets out of hand, I don't know.
Well, that's the concern. That's the job market concern, right? Which we were talking about earlier. Was nobody can predict the future, but again, if we look back, at one point, the internet was supposed to take everybody's job.
yeah.
As with any new development, I don't maybe people overestimate how lazy people actually are. In fact, I would argue that it's a pretty popular sentiment of people are very, very lazy, which is true for, some days of the week, but most of us are not. Jobs get replaced, sure, but then new jobs become
Yeah. Of course, in between the process, there will be unfortunate loss of work or loss of income for a very short period of time. Unless that person go around. So it is not, in my opinion, I don't think it is the issue with the technology itself. It is the pace of adaptation.
Yeah.
What could make an issue here. Because if overnight you replace 100 workers with one, overnight, well, that would be problematic. But if it's gradual, then we'll be fine. I think, because that happened with almost every major technology we have right now, from cars to planes to ships to engines to everything.
Yeah.
And doesn't happen really sudden. Nothing almost happens suddenly.
It's like, okay, well then we get It's over. I don't want to get overly philosophical about what we're supposed to do about this, but yes.
So the 10% and the 5%. And,
I'm less concerned about what the masses feel about technological advancements and where we're supposed to stop.
Yes, it will never. I hope technological advancement never stops. It's us. It's a human beings. We have to evolve and get better.
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's what we do here. Exactly. In our office.
And that's what you can do if you know.
And viewership.
Disclaimer. I think as we grow, we are going to see more and more into, especially the next 6 months. I think they're going to be very interesting. And we have to be informed to stay ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think in terms of the market and the economy in the next 6 to 8 months, yeah. Again, I'm not the end of the world guy. I never have been. My father wasn't an end of the world guy, and his father wasn't an end of the world guy, and so far the bloodline keeps going.
And I'm here, so I guess it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, but certainly, between interest rates and government activity, there's going to be some stuff to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I love one thing I want to mention is, and I'm sure you met many of those as well. When we meet someone, whether a client, prospect, or just somebody in your social life, a friend, cousin, neighbor, and they put so much stake into the political kind of spectrum, and they tie out to investments.
Yeah,
becomes more emotionally attached to one way or another way, so they hold back from doing anything unless their favorite person or party or whatever idea, and all ideas are welcome, is in power or close to power.
Right.
And by doing that, they're missing on the actual growth that would happen, without looking into, the economy itself is its own. It is its own world, regardless of the other noise that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, politics are certainly a large source of influence for a good number of investors. We see it on both sides.
Do you think that one of the jobs that we do here is more to calm people down?
It's to
especially
try.
when it comes to that.
It's certainly to try. And I think the numbers back up the sentiment. So it's, as long as somebody is open to looking at the actual math behind the idea, it becomes pretty apparent. I understand. People have very, very strong opinions politically both ways, and it's easy to feel like things are headed in a direction that doesn't benefit you financially or socially or whatever it may be. It's not really our job to have an opinion on any of that. It's our job to look at the numbers and to look at history and to try to make sure you are protecting yourself and your assets and you're not being foolish.
Yeah, in any given period, you look back 6 months, anything could have happened, but you look back 10 years, for example, in any given period, more than likely the outcome's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
In your favor.
Well, here's a fun fact. I've become a U.S. citizen recently. You guys were there.
I maintain you are the most. Well, actually, not even in this room, you're not the most American. But if Vinny wasn't here, you would be the most American in this room because you were the only one who had to go out of his way to make it so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, it's great to be one. One of many equal people in there. My fellow citizens. So,
Salve.
So, I went to register to vote. You know, put my in for the election to do that, and they make you kind of mark if you are a party affiliate.
Right.
So in my mind, because I've just become an American, I don't know much about that yet.
Yeah.
I thought there would be like one or two main parties involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
The party of and they said, yeah, you just mark if you're affiliated with any party, and I'm so I go in and I'm checking. I'm like, where's page 1? Okay, page 2 and 3. Turns out we have like 25. Did you know that?
I remember there being 3 options.
There were many, many, many more, and I was surprised. So, yeah.
Was it a multiple choice thing? Did you guess right?
Well, we can put anything you want, I guess.
Taimi found the fill in the blank.
But it was just, to me, it was surprising. Like, whoa, those are way more than I thought there is.
Same McCratican.
Yeah.
All right. I think I'm good. If you guys are good.
I'm good.
You've told the people everything you need to tell them.
People know.
Thank you, people.